We are moving on today to Module 3. I think you guys know Module 2 stuff is due Monday at midnight. I don't think there's no instructor case for Module 2, so it's 2 SAMS cases and an exam. So hopefully we did one of the SAMS cases together. We're going to move into Module 3 today. And Module 3 is performing calculations with formulas and functions. And one of the great things about using a spreadsheet application is that there's a lot of built-in functions, right? There's already things in there to do averages and lookups. You know, some people have built functions. We could build our own functions, but people have built functions for commonly used things like if statements and counting. So understanding how to use them and when to use them is really an important thing. So that's what we're going to focus on in this section. And actually, we'll use some of the more, useful functions like VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, if you've heard of those, and if statements, we'll kind of introduce those as well. So let's go to Module 3 on Blackboard, and let's go to Module 3 data files. Let's go down to Module, and let's go to Wingate. In the documentation tab, you can enter your name if you like. And I'm going to use the today function to put in today's date. So in this module, we're going to learn more than you ever wanted to know about farming. So it's an example of using a spreadsheet to figure out revenue for a plot of land. This is at Wingate Farm. So what we want to do first is we want to populate some things, populate some constants. So that's what we'll do first on the yield worksheet. We are going to put in the total corn crop. I guess we have 137 acres. We also have 6 rows. Each of our rows is apparently 2.5 feet in width and 294 feet in length. We need to figure out, so those are the population for B7, B8, B9. We need to figure out a formula in cell B10 to figure out the sample area for acres. And it gives us that formula. So we're going to enter that in as equal 2 times B7, which would be the number of rows, times B8, which is the row width, times B9, which is the length, divided by E7, which is the square feet in an acre. So divided by E7. We hit enter, and we get 0.2024. The book requests that we truncate that to 2 decimal places. I'm going to do so using my number, little button mover up there. We have some other data we'd like us to enter. The sample weight is 1922. The moisture content is 0.163. That's going to be a percentage, I guess. And the dry weight in pounds that we need to put in B15 is going to be calculated with a formula. So we're going to take B13 times 1 minus B14. So I guess 16% is moisture, so we're taking the complement of that, 1 minus that, and multiplying that by the acreage there, or the sample weight. In cell B16, we want to calculate The market weight of the corn kernels using the dry weight value and the standard moisture content based on the formula. So this one, it's giving me a formula of B15 divided by 1 minus, and then we need to use the parentheses here, E8. And that should come out to 1903. Yes?
My internet wasn't working. I'm on here now. What was the formula for the sample area?
Let's see. So I'm going to do control tilde. Okay, so let's go down. Well, it wants us to make these no decimal places. So select B15, B16. There are no decimal places. I think it wants the moisture content as a percentage. Let's do 1 decimal place. So we do all this because we're trying to get at a yield, and really what we're trying to get at is how much we're going to make on this corn. So in cell B19, we're going to use the formula B16, which is the market weight divided by E9, which is the market price per bushel, which gives us 33.9. In B20, it wants us to take B19 divided by B10. That gives us bushels per acre. And finally, in B21, it wants us to take that bushels per acre, B20, times B4, which is the number of acres we have. So if you want to see those formulas. So what we're really trying to arrive at is this value, this projected market revenue. So in B23 is what really all these calculations lead to, is in B23 we'd like to put the calculation B21, which is our total yield, times E10, which is the market price per bushel. And I believe it comes out to around $88,559.40. So all this was geared toward, okay, this is how many acres we have. This is how we plant things. These are our constants. And one thing that I kind of want to, I don't think really the book highlights this very well, but when you build something like this for a purpose, it's really important that you make things as variabilized as possible, meaning, I don't know if you noticed, like, what if this market price per bushel changes from 385 to 420? We definitely don't want to put it in a formula, right? We want to make it a constant that we refer to, because if we use that 10 different places, we don't want to go to 10 formulas and change it. We want to change it in one place and have it filled out. So rarely should we use a constant in a formula. Yes, sir?
Talking about that, is there a way to reference a cell in another worksheet?
Yes. Let's say I want to do, we get to that, but say I want to reference, I'm going to take B21 and I'm going to find something else to multiply it by, right? So if I just go to, let's say, the yield history, okay, worksheet, and then I click on, and I'm just picking a number, E5, what you note is the way it references that is B21 times, and see it says yield history, and then the exclamation point says, I'm referring to this worksheet, cell E file. It has single quotes around it because there's a space in yield history. If our name was just yield history all in one word, it would just be yield history with exclamation point. But because it has a space in there, it puts the quotes around and say, this, I'm referring to one thing. Does that make sense? So the easiest way to do those kind of references is not to type them in, but to navigate to them, right? And we can also, even though we're not going to do that in this module, you can also navigate to values in other worksheets. You know what I'm saying? So you have a Wingate worksheet, and maybe you have, I don't know, the National Weather Service has a worksheet that you want to reference. You know, it's on your computer. You can navigate to that worksheet, that workbook, I'm sorry, that worksheet, that cell. You know, you can go multiple levels down, okay? So we got a crazy revenue now, so I'm just gonna undo that just as I showed you that, okay? Now when we build something like this, you know, it's important, there's other things we can do, like if I'm going to give this to someone, I want them to know where they input data and where the calculations are, okay? So one way we can do that is through cell styles. So, and I think we've seen that before. So let's select, the book tells us to select the non-adjacent cells, B4. I'm going to hold down the control key, B7 to B9, B13, B14, and E7, E10. Because these are all cells that were, input. You know, these were values. These are constants that I put in. So I have those non-adjacent, using the control key, I have those non-adjacent cells selected. If I go up to cell styles, there is a style for input. You guys see that input under data and model? There is also a cell style for calculation. So let's go to B10, hold down the control key. Whoops. B10, hold down the control key. And it looks like B15 and B16 were calculated. B19 through B21, B23 were all calculated. So if I go up to cell styles, there is a cell style for calculation. Now we're not there yet. Showing them differently is one way to indicate to the user, these are input cells, these are calculated cells. But another level, which we'll go into in a different module, a future module, is if these are calculations, I don't even want the user to be able to go into that cell. Do you know what I'm saying? I can lock it so that they can't get into that cell at all. They can only get into the cell that I want them to be able to get into, right? Because when you design models like this, you know, maybe you're going to be using them, maybe you're going to give them to someone else in your organization to use. You want to make it so that it's user friendly and also that that person can't corrupt it. You know what I'm saying? That they can use it. So there's ways we can lock cells, and I'll show you that in a future model. Okay. So we have this built. Now we're going to go over, well, I'm going to do this, I guess, right now. We're going to do a whole module on what-if analysis. But one of the first things we can do is right now I'm making roughly, looks like I'm roughly making about $88,000, right? So if I get more acreage, and let's just make that smaller so you can see. If I get more acreage, let's go up to 140 acres. Obviously, I can plant more corn. I can make more money. If I go to 200 acres, all right, now I'm 129,000. Let's go to 190. You know, I'm at 122,000. But maybe I want to know how many acres do I need to plant to get to a certain value, and that certain value is 100,000. That's what I say is 100,000. I could do trial and error, right? I could keep doing this. I'm like, oh, 190 is more than I need. I can go to 180. Okay, I can go down, 175. and I'd eventually be able to zero in on that, yes? But my time is valuable. Let's make Excel do that work for me. So if I go to the Data tab, okay, do the Data tab, and under the group called Forecast, there is a what if analysis button. You guys see that? You guys probably have used this in other classes. But if you click on the drop down under what if analysis, we'll use these things later. These are really cool, scenario manager and data table. But right now, we're just going to do the simple one called Goal Seek. So click on Goal Seek. And what Goal Seek does is kind of does that trial and error for us, but it makes Excel do it. It says, all right, what cell do you want to set to a certain value? In this case, what do I want to set? What's the set cell? What's the cell I want to reference? What cell was I trying to get to a certain value? Very good. So I'm going to say, hey, I want to get B23 to the value 100,000. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And to get there, I wanted to change the cell total corn crop, which is B4. So it says get B23 to 100,000 by changing cell B4. I click OK. And it says, hey, I don't know if you can see that very well, but to get to $100,000, you have to plant 154.7 acres. Okay. Now I want you to do one. What if I said, well, this is fixed. I can't, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Well, let's go to, what was it, 156 point what?
6, 9, 8, 4.
That's fine, 6, 9, okay.
Oh, 154, not 156.
Okay, 154. All right, that's roughly close enough. Okay. So what if I said this is how many acres I have? That's the thing that's constant. I can't change that. I can't plant more. I'm limited by 155 acres roughly. Maybe I want to know. How much I have to get per bushel to get to $150,000 revenue. So how would that change? What would that look like? Try to do that for me. So I'm saying 154.69 is locked in, right? I can't change that, but maybe, and I know I can't really change the market price per bushel because that's economics, but let's say that does change. I want to know, how good does that have to be for me to get $150,000 in revenue? So I'm going to use Goal Seek, right? And you're going to go to what if analysis, Goal Seek. Once again, I'm going to set the cell B23, and this time I said, 150,000 by changing cell, in this case, E10, because I'm saying, what does the market price have to be for me to sell 154 acres and get $150,000? It tells me it has to be $5.78. Okay, so when you're making decisions in the business world, oftentimes you realize things are variable, and you want to look at things from multiple angles, and this is one way to do that. Does that make sense? So it's real simple, quick, but it can be very, very useful and powerful. Let's go to yield history. That's another worksheet. Okay, so we're going to use some functions here. So let's just kind of go over basic functions. So I want to count the number of years that I planted. Okay, and it looks like 2006, I didn't plant anything. So I don't know what happened in 2006, but from 1995, in 2006, what become a Wingate farm was undergoing foreclosure. Oh, we had a bad year. So from 95 to 2017, here's our yield. I'm going to count the number of years. So a couple things, okay? One way when we enter a formula, we always use equal. And if I know the function, I can just type it and I can say count. I want to use the count function in this case, all right? Now a couple things. Every formula looks the same. Every function looks the same. There's a function name, parentheses, and then inside it, we call those arguments. Arguments are things we pass, input into the function. You notice here that value 1 is bolded. You guys see that? And you notice the second one, value 2, has like square brackets around it. Well, the bold part means that is required, right? That's a required argument. You have to at least give it one value to count. The brackets around it mean, hey, that's optional. You can give it that, but you don't have to, okay? So we could say count, it looks like it's E5 to E27, I think. And it looks like we have 22 years worth of crop yield. Another way we could do that is I'm going to do count, and probably count just counts cells with numbers in it. Okay, so if I do count column E, and I'm just going to click on E, and you see it says count E to E, which means it's just going to count the column E. It's going to tell me 22 as well. So it didn't count this header because it's not a number in it, okay? There is a function called count A, which you see it tells us counts the numbers of cells in a range that are not empty. So if I do count AE, it's going to 23. Why? Because it's counting that label as a value, and that's no good. So a couple things. So I'm going to delete this again. If I don't know what function, I happen to know that because I've used it, and you guys will have used it before, I'm sure, as well. But a lot of times, I know I need a function to do something, but I'm not sure where to start. Well, if I go up to Formulas tab, okay, we have a wealth of functions here. Okay, we have an insert function, and we have a function library. So let's go to, I'm still in B5. I'm going to go up to insert function, and it has a couple things. The functions in Excel are organized by category. So most recently used is a category. Those are the ones you most recently used. These are ones that I guess I most recently used or this computer did. But there's also categories like financial functions, which you guys in finance and accounting, there's IPMT, which we'll do a module on that. Net present value is in there somewhere, I think, maybe not, but there is a next present value. I'm not sure why I don't see it there. There's present value. There are date and time functions, logical functions, statistical functions, lookup functions, all those good things. Now, maybe I don't know where any of those things are. I think count is under statistical. So it is. So if I go to count, it says, what does count do? You see down below, it says count the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. If I click on count A, it says count the number of cells in a range that are not empty. So that's a little bit different. If I do count blank, it counts the number of empty cells in a specified range of cells. So it only counts the blanks. Now, if I didn't know any of those things existed, I didn't know what category they were in, I can obviously type in this little box. I can type count. I can click go, and it finds functions with that name, right? So it helps us do that. So I'm going to enter the count function this way. So I said I'm going to click on OK, and instead of me typing, this is more of a way of pointing and clicking, and it says count the number of cells in a range containing numbers. It gives you the thing. It tells you the arguments. You see value 1 is bolded. What does that mean? It is required. Value 2 is not. That means it's optional. So I'm going to click on the little spreadsheet here. I'm going to click on column E, close the spreadsheet. And what's kind of nice about this is, I don't know if you notice down here, it gives you that formula result that says, hey, this is like what it's going to be. It's going to be 22 if you accept this. Well, that makes sense. I'm going to click OK and accept it. But the other thing is sometimes functions, like count functions, pretty damn simple, right? But sometimes functions have goofy arguments. They have like little flags. Like they say, if this flag is a 1, that means use for payments at the end of the period or payments at the beginning of the period. So, I don't memorize those things. I can't memorize those things like that. You can't memorize them all either, probably. So when we do this, there's a help on this function, a little hyperlink. And it's nice. It gives you a little video, which I never have watched. But it tells you the syntax, how it's structured, the arguments, what they're for. And then what's really nice is it gives you some examples, right? It gives you a little example of other like use cases for that function. This is how, how this function can be applied. So that is, I'm just going to click OK and accept this. But I could also go up here and, average yield. I know that happens to be under, well, that's under more functions, statistical. I can go to average, and I'm going to click on column E. So this isn't really that exciting, but we can do, it depends, however you want to enter this. I'm going to do more functions, statistical. Looks like this one's minimum. So I'm going to do min. If I can find min, column E. Might as well copy that down. I'm going to change min to max. And I'm going to copy that down and change max to median. And we will explore in this class probably about, I don't know, a good many of those functions, but still only about 25%, right? There's some that are geared toward engineering. There's some high-level financial functions. We'll spend a lot of time on there since this is a business type course. Math and trigonometry. Text, we'll spend a lot of time on text. Logical, we'll spend some time there. But there is a lot of functionality to this. So do you guys have this all in? Yes. And we could obviously, format the way we want. Let's go to the growth tab. And let's go into, so I think this is like some kind of corn growth calculator. Let's put in today's date. So we're going to do current date. We're going to say equal today. Remember that function? So 1/20/2017. Okay. You guys with me? Under farm day, let's go to D5 and we're going to put day 1. We're going to put day 2. And it would be, it looks like I have, I don't know, many days here. It looks like, well, it's too small. But I have many days. It would be a huge waste of my time to type in day 3, day 4, day 5, the whole way down to day whatever the hell we have here. So what we can use is let's highlight day 1, day 2. Let's drag down. And you see that Excel, adeptly, and we talked about this before, it can do quarters and everything else like that. It represents that, hey, you have a series here, and the day seems to stay constant, but it appears that the number changes. Now, when I release my mouse, okay, so I release my mouse, there's a little spreadsheet at the bottom, right? Because Excel says, I assumed you want to fill a series, and that's what I did want it to do this time. But if I click on that little spreadsheet, there's other things it could do. Like, for example, if I wanted to just copy those cells. If I would have done copy cells, it would have said day 1, 2, day 1, 2, day 1, 2, day 1, 2. You know what I'm saying? It would just copy it. I could fill with the formatting only, fill with that, or I could do flash fill. Flash fill was that, recognize that pattern. So it did what I wanted to do, so there's no need for me to change it. I'm just going to hit enter, and I'm all good here. Okay. Now it wants us, so we're building a table of like the temperature and when we think this corn is going to yield, I guess. So let's go over, and we want to build this table out. And day 1 is, I guess we're planting today. Okay, so day 1 is today. So we want to reference today, and I can reference a cell just like by just putting in equal and then clicking on that cell. So it's going to take, or maybe no, I think I want B, what's it want me to do? Put in there. It wants me to put B7 in here. So equal, and I'm going to say B7. And that's the date I plan to start planting. And if you notice here, there's nothing in there. So it does, this is date format. So it puts out 1/0/1900. And the reason for that is the way Excel stores numbers or days is behind the scenes. It stores it as the number of days that have elapsed since January 1st, 1900. So if it's blank, that would be what we put in there. But I want to put, it wants me to put in here a starting date of, does it tell me? Yeah, of April. We're going to plant on April 25th. This is in B7, 2017. Okay, so that's the day we're going to start planting our corn here, apparently. Now, a couple of things I can do. Okay, I want to fill out the table with dates 4/25/2017, the whole way down, next day. But I want to show you what we can do is we can do date functions. Okay, so we can add to dates just like we add to normal numbers. So I'm going to go to L6. I'm going to say take L5 and add 1 to it. So when you add 1, it's going to add a day to that, right? So just even though it's a date, I'm going to be able to add to it. Now I'm going to fill that out. So if I drag just L6 the whole way down, it'll actually drag. Now it's not dragging the value, it's dragging the formula down. Yes, okay, so it looks like day 159 is September 30th, 2017. Okay, does this make sense? So it's just referencing the one above it and adding 1 each time. Now, apparently, we know something about corn and when milestones happen for corn. And it looks like we have a little table here that generally with corn, emergence, which is a milestone, is 5 days. The first leaf, a milestone, is 8 days. Pollination, 72. First grains, 88. Solid grains, 106. So what I want to do is I want to create a little formula here. It says if I start on April 25th, when is emergence going to happen? So emergence is going to happen B7, which is my planting date, plus, and I'm going to reference O12. So it tells me, hey, April 30th is when we should see our first seedling come out of the ground, apparently. Now, if you noticed, this table, first leaf pollination grains, is structured the same as this table. So instead of me entering each time, I'm gonna drag this down, but I'm gonna have an issue when I do this. You'll note I have an issue. This is gonna be wrong. Okay, these dates are wrong. Because if I look at this, it's taking B8 and adding O13. So I really want that first leaf 8 days after the start date, and I want the pollination 8 days after the start date because it looks like it's taken us way too long. And the reason for that, so what do I want to do to this, and you guys remember this from statistics hopefully, is what do I want to do to this formula before I drag it down so that it uses, go ahead. Yeah, so cell references are very, very important, okay? They can cause you a lot of headaches. So I always want B7 to be locked in. You guys remember how we did that? How do we lock in B7? Yeah, $sign. So the function key that gets me there is I'm going to go into edit mode in that formula, highlight that section, and F4 is that function key. And in stats, I think all we ever did was do double $signs. Okay? Double $signs means both the column and the row don't change. They're always locked in. So B7, it'll always be B7 no matter if I copy it down or if I copy it across. But if I hit that toggle key, you'll see there's different flavors. This is, hey, the row is locked, but I'll change the column. Now I have a $sign in front of the B. It says, hey, the column is locked, but I'll change the row. I hit it again, nothing's locked. I hit it again, everything's locked. So in this case, I'm just going to lock everything. And I drag that down, and now it's saying, all right, so that's B7 plus O13. That was right. This one is B7 times O14. And I think the best way, I don't know, maybe it's not the best way, but I like it, to kind of show how those cell references work is let's build ourselves a little, let's go to a new tab. Let's make a new sheet here, and this is ancillary. But let's build ourselves a little multiplication table. So when you were in school, how would you have to memorize up to how many? 12. Yeah, I never understood why 12. Just dozen. Why did we stop? Why didn't we stop at 10? Why did we go 2 more? Why didn't we go 3 more? I guess because of the dozen. You know what I'm saying? My kids still do a dozen. Why 13? Why did we stop there? 13 times 13, 169. Why don't we? But anyways, let's do 12. So 1, 2. Now, I'm not going to type 1 through 12. Why? Because I don't need to. I can make Excel do that, right? I'm going to go to column B. I'm going to type 1, 2. And the same thing, I can do it sideways as well. So the whole way over to 12. While I'm here, in fact, I don't know, I should center these things, I guess. Make it look nice. I'm going to select them both. Go to cell styles. I don't know, let's do accents here. Just to make it look lighter. Here.
Sometimes when I drag that down, it just keeps me.
Okay, so what that's doing then is copying the cells, okay? So a couple things you could have been doing here. So you do 2. Now, are you highlighting the 1 and 2? Are you selecting 1 and 2? So if you just do 2, it doesn't realize there's a series there because you only told it about the 2, right? But if you select 1 and 2, it says, hey, she's telling me there's 1 and 2, so I recognize that is what comes after 1, 2, so I'm going to give you, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that might be, was that your issue? Okay. All right, so I want to build out my multiplication table, and I'm going to do, obviously here, A2 times B1, right? That's going to be 1 times 1. But if I copy, we're going to have a mess. I'm going to make a mess. What the hell? If I copy this over and drag this down, okay, ugly, right? And anytime you see a pound symbol, there's a different errors. We'll go over those errors, but that means something is wrong here. We have an error. So I'm going to undo, okay, and go back to where we were. So we have an issue. I want to copy and drag this down. But I realize that I need to do something with cell reference. That's my issue, right? And I don't want to lock in A2B1, the whole damn thing, because if I copy it over, it's just going to be 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So this is referencing, A2 is referencing the column. So what part of that do I want to lock in, and what part of that do I want to use relative referencing? So that's referencing the column number. So what part do I want to lock in, and what part do I want to make relative? What do you guys think? So I'm going to use F4. Go ahead.
Oh, wait, do we,
Huh?
never mind.
All right, so I hit F4. They're both locked in. We know that's no good. Hit F4. Now what is locked in is the row. Okay. What do you think? Now the column's locked in. What do you guys think? Which one? Column locked in or row locked in? Column is right. So for that one, the column needs to be locked in. How about for this, this reference? The row needs locked in. So I'm going to lock in the 1. So it should be $A2. So the A is locked in. B $1. So the 1 is locked in. So now, if I drag over, that looks good. Drag down, that looks good. Those are numbers I'm used to seeing. Okay. And I've built a multiplication table for someone. Okay. Does that make sense? Do you understand that? Why we'd use shades of that, or I guess variations of that? Okay, so where were we at? We were at the growth. Where are we at with this? Tell you what, let's just let's do something different. Okay, we'll come back. Let's go back to the sheet we created, and let's go back to, before we go back to this growth, we're going to work on this. So save this where it's at. I'm going to save it on my desktop here. But let's show you some of the date functions that we can use. So let's go to, let's go equal. This bigger. Equal date, okay? What that does is if you give it a month value, a year value, a month value, and a day value, it will turn it into a date. So I'm gonna give it my birthday. You give it your birthday. And I hit enter, and it made that date, made that into a date, right? I gave it three numbers, made it a date. It gives me like basically the short date. Let's go to the long date format so we can see Saturday, April 18th, 1970. If I go to, let's go right next to it and let's do today. Okay, and it gives me today's date. I might as well make that long date. So there's also a function called now. And it's a little different than date in that now gives you both today's date and the current time based on your computer settings. So I have 120, 2017, 945. And if I refresh, it'll keep updating. If I want to do a calculation, okay, so let's say I'm going to take C16, which is today, minus B16. It says 17,079. What do you think that is measured in? That's days. If I wanted to figure out, how many years I guess I was alive, I could do D16 divided by 365 days, and that's my age. I can also extract components from a date. So if I do day B16, oops, I'm sorry, I forgot the equal sign, equal day, and I do B16, it's going to extract the day. So it's going to extract 18 for me. If I do equal a month, B16, it's going to extract the month. And if I do equal year, obviously that's going to extract from any date field the year. Okay, so I kind of can make it one, I can make it not. Sometimes we have dates and we want to know what day of the week it is. If we do equal week day and we give it any date, this will return the day. So equal B16, and it comes back with a 7. So it's going to return, so you might say, what the hell does a 7 mean? Yes. Well, Sunday's day 1, Saturday's day 2, but say you didn't know, you didn't understand what the 7 was. What you could do is we could go to formulas, function, and we can go to that weekday function, and you'll see it says, returns a number from 1 to 7 identifying the day of the week. That's probably still not enough information for me. But if I click on help on this function, you'll see it tells us if the return type is 1 or omitted, and we didn't put anything in there, it says 1 is Sunday through 7 Saturday. Okay, and there's different ways it could return. If we put in a 2 for that second type, 1 is Monday, 7 is Sunday, so it depends how we want that structured. Okay. All right, so I think we're about out of time. Save where you're at. We'll start with this on Monday and keep looking at this. What we're going to get into Monday, I think you'll like more, is we're going to talk about VLOOKUP function, okay, which is a commonly used function where we reference a table and return results. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you Monday.